everyone, and welcome to Geotab's Tuesday Talk. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Shay Green. I'm one of the Learning Center trainers here at Geotab. And for today's session, we have Stephen Bell, a business development manager on our marketplace team, and he'll be presenting on best sales practices for the Solar Asset Tracker by Flex. With that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Stephen now. Take it away.
Thanks, Shay. So yeah, my name is Steve Bell. I am the business development manager in the marketplace. And today's call is really going to be about understanding this new asset tracker that we've brought out, and it's been available for the last couple of months. We're excited to announce that we're going to be taking this off of our beta program here probably in the next couple of days, hopefully by the end of the week. So you should be able to see that change happen as well. As we go through this, it's important to kind of understand how this asset tracker is going to be different than some of the other asset trackers that are out there on the market, and how it can dynamically communicate as well as add some additional features. So we'll get started here. You know, it's pretty straightforward in most instances why somebody may use an asset tracker or how an asset tracker works. In most instances, you're going to be using this for items that are maybe not necessarily powered. So trailers, containers, things that may move around quite a bit but don't necessarily have a power option to run something as simple as a standard telematics device. So we're going to talk about how this device operates a little bit differently compared to a static tracker that sends specific ping rates and things like that, and how you can manage and understand what's happening with this device. So that way, as you're talking to your customers that have different types of assets and equipment that they're trying to understand and maybe look at a utilization, how this device can play into all of that. So we'll dive into that. Some of the basics here is that you're going to be able to get GPS location, but it's going to be dynamic, which I'll get into in a moment. You're also going to be able to read the battery level of this device. Even though it is solar, it does have a battery backup, and we'll talk about the length of how far that battery can go even without sunlight, and how you can write rules and understand if there's a battery that runs into a low level. The other thing that we want to talk about in terms of this asset tracker is some of the additional features and capabilities that this device is going to bring to the table. Asset trackers for a long time have been track and trace and really just dots on a map. And that's now become just table stakes. And now it's all about what else can we connect this asset tracker to, and how can we learn more about what's attached, let's say, to the trailer. And gaining more access of data to be able to bring into the My Geotab environment. So we'll go into that. With the asset tracker, you're going to be able to understand things like mileage, hours used, and the solution that we've designed with this Flex tracker is really to be a seamless integration into the My Geotab environment, where you're going to be able to get breadcrumb trail tracking of how this device is going to be able to present data a lot like a customer may experience the Geotab device in this environment. So you're going to be able to look at a breadcrumb trail. It's not just going to be dots on a map at maybe a 4 or 24-hour period. So we'll be able to kind of explain and have you understand how this breadcrumb trail is going to be available and how somebody can view that. And it feels much like a standard vehicle, if you will, in this environment. And you'll be able to report on miles and hours. So even maintenance type reports can be extracted from some of this data to be able to understand maybe when a trailer has been on the road long enough that either it needs to see some level of maintenance, or maybe it needs to be swapped out and used as a warehouse option versus running on the road. So all these things are going to be available inside of the My Geotab database, and we'll cover some of that. Briefly, just want to talk about who we've partnered with to have this hardware developed. So we work with a company called Flex. Flex is an international company that has 250,000 employees, I believe was their last count internationally. So they're well established. They are a large manufacturer for a lot of different products. I think one of the probably most popular that everyone's heard is the Fitbit. They manufacture that kind of hardware all the way up to large commercial grade equipment as well. So we've partnered with them, and they've built a really well established product that works in a lot of different environments. We found that they were the best option for us in terms of that partnership. So that's why you'll hear that this is a solar asset tracker by Flex, and that's where the background is coming from with this partner. Talking about the features of this device, we wanted to have something that was really easy to install on a trailer or really any other kind of asset. And this is what we really just consider as a bolt-on option. The device has 4 holes on the outside flange. It allows for self-tapping screws. It comes with self-locking nut and bolt combination, as well as we have some customers that even just use a pop rivet. It's meant to be super easy to install. I put this on a vehicle in about 5 minutes with self-tapping screws and an impact wrench. It was super easy and doesn't take any kind of power management. There's no wires to run, and it starts working immediately. So the good part is when you install this device, there's 2 ways you can turn this on. It's going to have a solar panel, and as soon as that detects sunlight, it's going to start reporting, or it's got a power button that allows you to turn the device on as well if, for some reason you're in a covered area when it's getting installed. The tracking portion of this device is built to be dynamic, and what that means is when the device is on the move, it's going to grab GPS locations at a 1-minute interval, and it's going to report those to the database every 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, you're going to find out where it's been for the last 10 minutes, and you're going to be able to constantly understand where it's at on the move. The device has an accelerometer in it, so as soon as it, maybe a truck is hooking up to a trailer and there's a little bit of shake, or even on the vehicle I've got this attached to, the second I start driving the vehicle, the device wakes up and starts reporting that information. So it doesn't take too much to get this thing moving. And then when the device is stationary, it's going to report on about every 24-hour interval to be able to give you a constant update of where it's at until it moves again. But it also is designed that way so it's a low power consumption that allows you to have months and months of capability with this device if it's stationary, even without any sunlight available. So that's why we wanted to build this in such a dynamic way that as the vehicle's on the move, that's really when you want to know what's happening and understand where it's at on the map, and making sure that it's following the route and moving through those locations properly. It is IP67 rated, which really, in layman's terms, that's probably the most rugged rating that a piece of hardware is going to have that you're going to want. It's going to be impervious to dust and water and things like that. I've got this device installed on a vehicle, and I run it through a car wash all the time, and I've never had a problem with it. We've even had some customers that maybe even add a little bit of a silicone bead around the base as they make the install, just to add a little bit extra level of protection, but it's going to be able to withstand a lot of those harsh elements and operate just fine. Again, we talked about the solar backup. The spec sheet, which I'll show you in just a moment, says that this device can run for about 4 months at 12 pings a day before it's going to drain the battery. So you're going to get about 4 months of life out of this based on the spec sheet. I'll show you a test that I ran here in a moment that shows you how I was able to potentially go well beyond that with how this device operates. And as well, once that battery dropped to a certain level, how quick it actually recharged. So it's kind of impressive at how well this device can actually work and continue to provide power and communication. Again, it's going to tap right into the My Geotab environment. It's really easy to add as a device. I'll show you what that looks like as well. There's going to be a serial number on the box. It just goes in just like any other vehicle, and it will be an asset that can be identified there. People ask quite a bit, what kind of communication is the device running on? It's going to have a 4G LTE option, and then it's going to have 2G fallback. So you're not going to have to worry about some of these networks that are going to get sunsetted by some of these carriers. This device will be able to withstand and continue to keep running, no matter how these carriers may adjust their network spectrums. One of the other things I'll get into here shortly is we have 2 different models of this device. One of them is called the TT600, and the other one is the TT603. The slight difference is that TT603 has an extra expandable connector, and this can do a couple of different things. It allows for RS-232 or CAN connections. It also allows for a power in connection. So maybe this is hooked up to a generator or a reefer unit, and you want to tap power from that generator and push power into the device to allow another level of security for constant power. That is a capability of the 603 model, as well as if there's wired options that we're going to be having coming out here soon for power tapping, temperature monitoring, door sensor, all those things can be used through that connector. Both of them also allow for wireless connectivity over Wi-Fi or, BLE. So that Bluetooth option will allow them to be able to connect to other sensors as well. So as TPMS and some of these things become more prevalent in these trailers and other assets, it makes it a little easier to pair them up with this asset tracker and be able to broadcast all of this into the database directly. So this device is really meant to be kind of forward thinking in terms of how we can connect other pieces of equipment or sensors into this unit and communicate to the cloud and into the Geotab environment. Just to give you kind of an idea at the moment, there's over 6,000 of these units that have been deployed since October. There's been a pretty heavy adoption of this unit. It's been received well and is able to communicate and has, pretty much zero problems and works really, really well. I'm going to move over and show you a couple of items inside the sales.geotab website where you'll see a lot of these different spec sheets that are available for this equipment. So as I do that, you're going to see, all I did was a quick search inside of this Geotab sales. I just typed in flex. It was just kind of the easiest keystroke to make. And I have all these options here. The two spec sheets that I'm going to talk about are going to be the ones that have this little brand flex at the top, and you'll see one of them is a 600 and the other one is a 603. So as I open those up, we'll open up the 600, and this is, I believe this is a two-page option. So it's already designed in such a way that you can provide this to your customers if you want. You'll see the installation on these trailers is up on the nose of the trailer. Ideally, that's probably going to be somewhere you're really going to want to put this kind of an asset tracker. The solar option is still going to be able to receive sunlight, but is able to shed dust and snow and things like that without having it being on top of the trailer and maybe even getting flossed off a low bridge or something like that. So some of the stuff we've already covered in terms of what's capable with the device. Here's more of the actual specs that are on the unit and what's capable. You'll notice the 600, which we're talking about, doesn't talk about the connector. That will be on the other page we'll talk about. The other thing that we've added in here was some MSRP pricing, which I think is worthwhile to discuss here for just a moment. So we wanted this device to be in a hardware space that was easy and affordable on the hardware side as well as on the monthly. MSRP for this 600 is at $220, and the monthly is we've got it at $10 a month. Keep in mind, these are costs to the customer that we've projected for again MSRP. But if we're talking on a wholesale perspective, these devices, the 600 is going to run at $187 a month, and the wholesale monthly is at $6 a month. So we wanted to be able to build some margin in there for the reseller to be able to gain some margin, not only on the hardware, but also on the monthly, which gives you about a $4 net revenue for the monthly subscription coming in as well. So this is the 600. And then the 603, you'll notice this little silver connector here kind of at the bottom next to this power button. This is the difference in terms of what we're talking about. And as I scroll down a little bit here, you'll see this connector information here is the main difference on this product. And as I scroll down a little bit more, you'll see the pricing there. So MSRP on this one's going to be a little bit higher at $250. Again, still $10 a month. And the wholesale price on this is $203. So there's still some margin there on that hardware as well. Obviously, there's some room to play around there depending on what you're looking for. But we wanted to have this available and easy for you to be able to take to your customers depending on questions that are there and being able to use this. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to jump over to the Geotab database and just go through a couple of things so you can understand the capabilities of what's here and how to be able to present this to a customer so they can understand how they're going to be able to use this. I'm looking at our marketplace van that we've got, which is a little Ford Transit Connect, and this will help kind of give you an idea of what's capable. This is a dashboard of some reports, and some of these reports are static and really don't have maybe a ton of use to them. The ones that I want to kind of point out here is you can use this asset tracker for a lot of different reporting capabilities. I would probably not use this for driver behavior as much as maybe utilization of different customers maybe of where this is going, mileage, things like that are all capable. Another one that's really nice is this watchdog report will also be able to pick up any of these asset trackers. So, if you have somebody who's trying to monitor to make sure all of the devices are online and communicating, whether it's an asset tracker or a Go device, the watchdog report is going to be able to report on those. So as you're talking to customers, they can understand that all the rules and the reporting capabilities that are there with a Go device are there with this asset tracker, so they can be able to look at this information and understand and use some of those same reports for this type of hardware. I'm going to jump to the vehicles tab for a moment here, and you're going to see that we've obviously got the marketplace van. We've also got the asset tracker here. You'll notice the serial number is slightly different. This third-party device starts with the letter C. That's the serial number that's going to be posted on the side of the box. That either can be a barcode scan. You can manually enter those. Just like you would add any other vehicle, you can go up, click add the vehicle, put in that C serial number, add in the name of the vehicle, and you're off and running. You can do a quick import as well. So it's meant to be very easy to be able to put all this into the database and be able to run these as necessary. As I move over to the map, we can see where both the asset tracker and the marketplace van in this case are sitting. Now it just so happens they're the same vehicle and they're pretty close to each other, so they're going to be right on top of each other on this map. But again, they're inside of a zone, so all those zone functionalities are still going to be available to be able to understand where the trailer or where that asset is moving to. And we can even move through a trip history and understand what's happening here. So in this instance, we have the asset tracker and the marketplace van, and we'll just kind of go through this to understand what's happening. I'm going to turn the van on for just a moment so you can understand my drive into work, and then we'll bring the asset tracker on top of that so you can kind of understand what took place. Woke up this morning, I left my house, and my vehicle was low on fuel, so I had to hit a gas station, which I did, to fill up. And after I hit the gas station, I then moved on and drove all the way into the office, and you'll see some speeding bans there. As I bring the asset tracker in on top of that, and I zoom in here, you're going to notice that the asset tracker is still taking GPS pings at every minute interval, so all these little black triangles that are picking up, but they are not snapping to the road. And part of that is designed with the data communication that we have. In order for us to keep this data cost down, we wanted to make sure that there was enough information that was being transferred without putting too much data through the device to increase the cost. So you can see where the device has moved from the asset tracker compared to the vehicle, and understanding kind of the relationship between the two. They both ended up in the zone. And then as I move through, you can see that they both traveled in the same direction. And you'll notice the white pings, these white triangles are the GPS pings that are picking up from the Go device, versus the black triangles that are picking up are coming through the solar asset tracker. So we're still getting a breadcrumb trail that's being delivered all the way through the trip that's happening. And that way we can see what has taken place with this trailer. I can also turn off the Go device, and we are left with a breadcrumb trail for the asset tracker. So again, all of this stuff is going to be available to be able to look and understand what's happening. A couple of other things I want to talk about that are available here. We talked about zones. I just want to show you a really basic rule that can be created, which I've been using. I will scroll down here. In this instance, I had a flex battery low option, which is designed to pretty much tell me anytime the battery hits below 50% on any of the asset trackers maybe I have in my environment. I write a basic rule for monitoring battery level, a certain percentage, and then I can have an email template sent out giving me location, asset name, and this can either work on a one-off basis, or maybe you build a report to monitor all of this depending on what you want. With that, I can also go into my engine and device information under measurements. We'll just keep this easy. And I am going to remove the marketplace van just to make this a little cleaner. And here's my information currently. I've got a battery level, which I can see is anywhere between 96 and 97% today. Ignition is just stating that this vehicle is on the move. And there's even an outside temperature reading that allows me to understand the temperature that's happening with the device. So as I click on, the battery level, you can see all the battery level pings that happened as the vehicle or as the device was on the move. So I can understand the battery level is still staying at a pretty high state. And I'm going to drop down to temperature, and I can see all the temperature readouts that are there as well. Another thing that's worth noting here, we were talking about the power consumption and how long it takes for these things to run. I'll give you a test environment here. If I go into custom, back in October, on the 25th, I put duct tape on the solar panel of the device. I did it on the 25th. I'm going to back up to the 20th so you can see a couple of days beforehand. And we're going to run it just all the way through to today so you can see what's actually happened with the power consumption over time. So I'm going to click on the graph here on the far right. And this, to me, really paints a pretty good picture. So you'll see a couple of days before where I'm running 96, 97, 96, 97. With lithium ion batteries, anything over 90% is really going to be considered pretty much fully charged. The amount of time to do that extra 10% of charging could take an exponential amount more time. And then once I applied the tape around the 25th, things start dropping off over about a 4-month period. So at about 4 months, on February 19th, I pulled the tape off and we were at about 50%. So in 4 months of me driving, I only reduced the power by about half. I ripped the tape off. There were 3 days there between when I ripped the tape off and it fully charging. Now, one of those days was the day that it snowed in Vegas once every decade or so. So there was a full 24-hour period where I didn't even have any sunlight. So really in about 2 full days of sunlight, this device was able to get back up to a full charge, and we've been running that way ever since. So it's really easy to see that, one, I can manage the power consumption and understand where my power levels are at, as well as what the charge rate's happening with this device. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the capabilities are here with regards to solar and how it's going to react. It is very well done in terms of how the solar panel is able to provide enough power very quickly and keep the device running efficiently. So with that, see if there's any questions that are out there, Shay, and we can go through and answer any of those that have come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Steve. We do have a couple that have popped in. The first one that I have here, and it may have been answered in the presentation, but I just want to make sure that it gets touched on, is what is the temperature range that the device can withstand? It's very cold during Canadian winters.
So this device, I'll even go back to the spec sheet here. The 600 and the 603 are the same in terms of their capabilities. So in here, under operating temperatures, you've got minus 20 C up to 70 C, which is going to put you pretty high on the high end. On the low end, we've even seen this device run as low as minus 40. With the polar vortex that hit a couple of weeks ago, we were even getting device readouts that were below minus 20 in instances. So, this is kind of the operating norm, but we're even seeing devices that are going to run below that.
Perfect. All right, the next question we've got here, it looks like a unit was sent out to a customer and they experienced some device reporting issues with the wrong location. They just want to make sure, is there potentially a pre-installation step that they missed, or if there's any tips or tricks that you could give that could resolve that issue?
The biggest thing that we found is if you can have the device loaded into the customer's database or whatever database this is going to be reporting into before it turns on and connects, generally that tends to be the better process. But normally once that device is turned on, it's going to take anywhere between, I think the documentation will say 2 to 20 minutes for it to connect, but most of these are connecting within 2 to 5 minutes. Some of the standard things that we would recommend is making sure on that initial install when that's getting turned on that it is visible to the open sky, ideally on a day that it's not raining and super cloudy to kind of give it the optimal connectivity. But if these events come up, there is the option for you to submit tickets, but normally I would say that trying to kind of put it in the best environment and making sure that the device has been loaded into the database before the install kind of tends to curb some of those issues.
Perfect. The next question that we have here is, what is the ping or an update rate for when the unit is not in motion?
So once the device stops, it's going to provide a location every 4 hours until it has hit a 24-hour mark from the time it stopped. Once it's been stopped for 24 hours, it's going to report once every 24 hours from then on until it moves. So a stationary device is going to report once a day until it wakes up again and is on the move.
Perfect. Next one we have here is, when will the temp monitoring be available? Is there a specific date currently?
That is a very good question. I do not have a specific date, but our temperature monitoring and our door monitoring we hope to have out here in the very, very near future. So I would imagine within the next weeks there's going to be announcements coming out, and we'll probably have some additional webinars launching those as well. So we are in the final stages. We're past testing. We're into some of the marketing, some of the other items. So we're really close. I don't have a specific date at the moment though.
But the next question I have for you, Steve, here is, what is the proximity of the device? Within 5 meters, within 5 feet?
The proximity of the device in terms of, if you're parking in a parking stall, how close is it? You're going to be within one parking stall. So I think we're calling that about 5 to 6 feet of GPS location. So it's going to be pretty much the same as what you're noticing on the Go device. You're not going to have to be moving between, if you've got a yard full of trailers, it's not going to be the fourth trailer from where you're standing. It's probably going to be the one you're staring at or the one right next to it. You're not going to be much farther off than that.
All right, the next one that I have here is there any notification when this solar unit life expectancy 6 to 7 years is wearing off?
There isn't a built-in notification, but there is a way that can be built. Generally, what could happen in some instances is as battery life begins to deteriorate, much like maybe a cell phone doesn't hold a charge as long when it's a couple years old versus when it was first opened up. You can write some rules and reporting around maybe battery life that would help you understand that. So maybe you've got a rule at 50% and you're kind of monitoring that. Maybe you've got another rule at 20% or to some degree lower than that. That may be a good indicator to understand what's happening with that life expectancy, so that way you're still ahead of the game before it actually loses all power. That would probably be the best way to handle monitoring the life expectancy and being able to have some type of reporting to be able to view that as a couple of different rules through the battery cycle.
All right, next one we have is, do the production units have a button for power on and off?
That is a good question. Both units, the 600 and the 603, do have a button for power on. The device will also power on once it hits sunlight, and so it will automatically turn on and start communicating that way. In order to keep that from happening before you're ready, there's a little black film that's over the solar panel to kind of block out all of that until you've got it bolted on and you're actually ready for it to report. But oddly, there is that same button that turns it on does not directly turn it off. So you don't have to worry about maybe somebody powering this off to hide a route or maybe try to hijack a trailer. The device, in order to be turned off, has to receive a communication through a specific server that we have to be able to then pair it and be able to activate the power off option. So it's not as easy to just turn the device on and off as maybe some may assume. That power off functionality requires quite a few steps to keep somebody from doing that either on accident or on purpose.
All right, next question we have, it says, looks like the Flex device is viewed under vehicles. How do you, or if you are able to, associate it to an existing trailer under engine and maintenance and trailers? Is this possible?
As of today, that functionality is not possible. It is viewed as a vehicle. We are working on adding some future capabilities for what will be a trailers tab and have a lot of additional functionality to that. So if I just move over here shortly, there will probably come a trailer tab as well, which will report to things like engine and maintenance rules, as well as even in the user profile. Some of the different user settings could also be focused on just trailers, where maybe in large organizations, there are certain individuals that are only focused on only reading the trailer. They'll be able to do that as well. So we are actively working to engage and have those things readily available. So that will probably be coming in the next months here as we're developing and building that out. As of today, it will just be another vehicle that's viewed. And so one of the things that I would recommend is building maybe a group with a trailer's identification and putting all of those assets in that group for managing, for reporting, and things like that.
Awesome. Next question we have, and we have just a few more to go. Are the door sensors going to communicate to the Flex wired or wirelessly?
As of now, they're going to be a wired option that was built on a couple of customer requests. The great part about Flex is they are really good at building a lot of different sensor and capabilities. So as opportunities present themselves that maybe we need to develop something on a wireless scale or some other sensor that we haven't even put on our radar map, opportunity will allow us to work with Flex to be able to develop, prototype, and produce these options. So to answer the initial question, they are going to be a wired option, but as opportunity comes up, there can be options for wireless or other sensors that we haven't even talked about on this conversation.
All right, next I have, can you please clarify what rules and reports are applicable to this device?
Really, any rule that is available that isn't directly looking at, let's say, an accelerometer or a seatbelt, or looking at idling. So any of the rules that aren't necessarily reading engine diagnostics and things like that, because obviously this device isn't going to be able to read those items. But if you're specific around zones, time, location, obviously, you're going to be able to access a lot of those. And then even some of the sensors that are going to be available to read out through the device. You know, we talked about temperature and battery as we have more things that are out there. You know, when door becomes available and temperature monitoring becomes available, rules will be able to be written against those as well to be able to monitor those. And then reporting is the same way. So, you know, like I talked about before, you're probably not going to want to use a driver behavior report on your Flex unit, but maybe a trip history report will help you identify the miles driven by trailer over X amount of time. You know, those are very handy, as well as, you know, battery monitoring reporting, the watchdog report. So anything that's really kind of outside of engine diagnostics and maybe safety, those are probably going to be the exceptions to how you're going to write your rules.
All right, so next question we have is, what is the best practice on hiding this device from any tampering?
So generally, most of our customers are putting this in such a location where it's going to be generally out of reach. So on those large trailers, they're sitting high on the nose. Some customers are installing these on the roof of certain vehicles or certain assets, depending on how they're built. One thing that we try to recommend and avoid is the device is small and narrow in terms that it's built to even sit in between the corrugations of a shipping container, but it's not something you're going to want to install inside of maybe the paneling of a truck or sorry, a trailer. The biggest thing I can recommend is making sure that, you know, as it's installed, that it's installed securely. You know, pop rivets are great because they're not as easy to just take off. Making sure that the device is out of reach is probably going to be another one. And, you know, trying to make sure that it's not as noticeable to the eye. The other great part about the device is the shell itself, not the solar panel, but the white plastic outside is even paintable. We've had some customers that are starting to paint them so they're less conspicuous. You know, maybe their trailers are a certain color and they're painting them to match that as well. So some of those things can kind of be involved to make sure that this device is not getting removed maybe as easily as some might think.
Perfect. Let's see. Could you use Geotab Drive to connect a Flex device to a vehicle currently in use?
Today, that functionality is not available. That is something that is coming with some of our trailer features that we are going to be bringing out to be able to have Geotab Drive incorporate into this and understand, you know, more on what's happening at the trailer level. So those are some of the things that we are working to enhance and build out with this kind of a device and capability. But today, it is not a function that's available now.
Okay, perfect. Next one we have here is, if the device is deactivated, can it be reactivated in the field?
Yes, it can. If the device is turned off through that specific process, the device can be turned back on. a couple of things to consider is if the device is turned off, sun hitting the solar panel will wake it up again. So you're probably going to either want to remove it and put it in a place where it's not going to receive sunlight, or cover it up in such a way like I had done with tape to make sure that it's not getting that kind of a signal. But once you're ready, hitting that button or having that solar panel hit sunlight is going to activate that again and turn that back on.
All right, so next one we have is, are the Flex trackers only on one signal provider, or would it be like the Go device? Would you have multiple options?
Currently, the device is running on the AT&T network. That is the only option that is there today, and we are working through some contracts for some options down the road.
Is there a specific advantage to choose this wireless solar power unit over a standard wired unit to get the same data?
I'm assuming that question is probably related to having the 600 versus the 603 in terms of communication. Depending on the customer need of what they may have, obviously the 603 option that has that connector is going to allow for all possibilities, whether it's wired or wireless in the future. It's kind of going to depend on what the customer is looking for. Outside of that single connector, the device operates the same, so they both have the BLE connectivity, and they operate the same on every other level. So it's going to be a little bit dependent on maybe what the customer's need is to determine what's available. And as more opportunities come out, there may be more options for wireless connectivity. So I would probably have to evaluate that by customer depending on what they're initially looking to solve and maybe what they might want to solve down the road.
All right, now will the Flex have a Bluetooth reader option in the future?
I don't think I understand that question. Maybe I can answer it in this way. The wireless connectivity, either through the wireless access point or the Bluetooth option, this isn't something you're going to pair a mobile phone to in that regard to capture data. It's going to be through a specific kind of signal where maybe you have, let's just say a TPMS sensor that's producing a Bluetooth signal, and this device is going to capture that. Or maybe it's instead of a Bluetooth signal, it's producing it over a wireless signal, and that sensor is going to be reading that as well. This isn't a connectivity that maybe you're thinking of in terms of a Bluetooth headset or connecting or pairing with a phone. So it's going to operate on a very specific spectrum and have a pairing on the server side as well to make sure that these things are communicating. So hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit better.
Alrighty, and it looks like the last question we have here is there a charge for reactivation?
I do not think that there is a charge for reactivation when that is turned off. It can be turned back on at a later point without a charge there.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Steve. It looks like we have another question that just popped in. Is there a privacy mode for the Flex asset tracker like there is for the Go device?
That is a good question. I actually have to go back and find out on that one. That was a question I had asked internally and was waiting for an answer on. So I don't have that today, but I will make sure when I have that answer, we can push that out and make that readily available. I believe we're trying to make that happen, but I want to confirm before I give you a yes or a no.
Perfect. And we did get a little clarification on that Bluetooth question. It looks like they were specifically talking about a reader for Bluetooth beacons.
Okay, so much like the for accessing BLE beacons, there is a way that connectivity could happen. It's not going to be as simple as you buy a Bluetooth beacon, put it in the trailer, and this device just starts reading it. It requires a certain process of connecting those two, but that capability is there, and that's part of why we added the Bluetooth option. So there is a way to make Bluetooth beacons to be read through this device and again pump all of that into the Geotab environment. Those are going to be one-off instances where it was going to require a technical event to make sure that those communications are happening, but that capability is there.
All right, so we do have another question here. How do we turn them off airtime wise?
That's going to be a ticket that's going to be submitted just like it would be managed on kind of with a Go device. So if you have a device that needs to be turned off from an airtime perspective, they can submit a ticket and we can work through the process of making sure that that device is turned off so it's not communicating.
Alrighty, next one we have for deactivation via my admin for the Go device. You have to send the device back to Geotab. Are the asset trackers going to be the same if they're deactivated, not just powered off? Will they have to be sent back in?
No, they won't have to be sent back in.
All right, and I'm going to say it one more time. It looks like the last question we have here is if the Flex device moves from one vehicle to another, how is that historical data treated?
So right now, just like the Go device, if we were to take this out and put it into another vehicle, there is a historical option that will allow for this device to be able to read where it was before by asset identification. So whether it's a trailer name or something to that effect, much like the Go device, to be able to read that change. That's some of that deeper integration that we built through this unit may be different than some of the other asset trackers that are out there to be able to keep that historical data going, even if they do switch assets.
Alrighty, so it doesn't look like we have any other last second questions sneaking in here. So it looks like that is going to be a wrap for this week's Tuesday Talk. Again, I want to give a big thank you to Steve for joining us today. If you do have any further questions regarding today's topic, please don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager or the marketplace team and get those answered. And of course, as always, you can access additional partner information by reviewing their partner folders on sales.geotab.com. So until next time, again, I'm Shay Green, and on behalf of myself and everyone here at Geotab, thank you for joining us on today's Tuesday Talk, and we wish you a productive and profitable week. Thanks so much, guys.